What's up, everyone? This is Samuelson on the mic, and this is episode 39 of the Until Next Week podcast. Yes, it is only Samuel, yes, myself, in the studio today because, as you know, Deen is still recovering from surgery he had this past week. I was able to talk to him, and it went well, so that's a positive sign. He plans on sending in some voice memos in the future, but until then, you're just stuck with me, so I hope you enjoy the episode we have this week for you. It's going to be a good one. So here it is, episode 39 of the Until Next Week podcast. Welcome back. Yes, this is episode 39 of the Until Next Week podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. I'm sorry that I am the only one here again today. I said would have guests soon. That's not the case, but I hope to have guests on and the next week. I have a few different people in mind, so we'll see what happens there. Deen said I could pick up his mic, so that's good. And it's also good that he was able to tell me that because he did have a successful surgery and he was doing well. I saw him today at church, and he was definitely his same old positive self. So just please keep praying for him, and we'll just hope that he continues to heal up and just be back to his same old self, and then we can get him back on the pod, and everything will be right in this world. So hopefully that all happens soon. But yes, please just keep up those prayers. And also, I think Deen wanted me to let you all know that he really, I think, appreciated all the nice messages he was receiving this week. There's definitely more than I think either of us really expected. We received several on the Until Next Week podcast Instagram, and then I know Deen also received some personal messages from you listeners out there. So thank you so much. I think that meant a lot to him, and it kind of is just like, what in the world? There's these strangers out there who just listen to us, but they also care about us, and that was just really nice of all you. So we do appreciate that a ton. So that's a great transition for me to go into my Grinds My Gear segment for this week. Yes, grinds my gears. Last week I talked about my bruised rib. That's still a thing, but that won't be my specific selection for this week. This week specifically, I'm going to talk about sports betting. Don't do it. Sports betting is not legal in the state of Missouri, but I was recently in a different state where it was legal, and they had like a promotion going where if you spent like $10 of your own money, they gave you like $250 in free bets. So my plan was use that $10, hopefully get it back, and then take it out so that way I'm just playing with the free money, which is what I did. I placed a $10 bet on the Cardinals to win a game when they were ahead by one run in the ninth inning with one out, and they almost blew it. So that was almost bad, but fortunately I got my $11.11, so I made $1.11, took it out, and then used the $250 in free bets. From there, I put them, again, I've never done like sports betting like in any capacity really. So I put them on some parlays, which is basically like multiple bets that all have to hit and then you can get big payouts. And the first one that I placed was on like a baseball thing to happen where it was like two starting pitchers in the same game to get like a certain amount of strikeouts and then another guy to get a base hit and another guy to get like a double. And within like 3 innings, 3 of the things had already happened. So I'm looking really good. I'm like, oh, I'm going to win this. This is going to be so easy. And then I was like, this could be bad, though, because if I win this, then in the future, if sports gambling becomes legal in Missouri, who knows? Will I get in trouble? I don't know. But the last thing that needed to happen was for Freddie Freeman of the Los Angeles Dodgers to get at least 2 bases in a game. So basically like 2 singles or a double or something. And he got no hits. And I was so disappointed. And I thought he would have one more at bat to end the game, but no, he was taken out for a pinch hitter. And I was like, why? Why is this happening? But it's okay. Again, it was free bets that I had, so not that big of a deal. I also played some other parlays on some football games. Those all didn't work either. So I don't plan to do any sports betting in the future because it's just not worth it. Besides that, I also did place a kind of joking bet with a friend at the beginning of the baseball season when the St. Louis Cardinals weren't playing well. He was like, there's no way the Cardinals finish above 500. I'm like, they're definitely going to finish above 500. I mean, they haven't not done that since like 2008. So he just like randomly threw out like an amount. He was like, hey, I bet you this, that they won't. And I'm like, oh, I'll take that. And immediately he regretted it. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be so easy. Like, I'm going to win this. And then as you all probably know, the Cardinals have been horrible this year, and I think in the past week or two, they finally lost enough games where they will not be above 500 for the first time in legitimately like 15 years. So that's another loss on my end. So just please don't sports bet unless you're good at it. So that is my grinding my gears segment. I hope you enjoyed it. It was this quality content right there. But I'm going to go into a little bit of a life update. As you listen to this episode, the NFL is finishing up their third week of playing games. If you're listening on the Monday this is released, there's a few games tonight or a couple games, but then that's it. Third week's done. And I've mentioned before, I'm in a fantasy football league, or a couple of them, one with like my work, and then also one with the Ghost Runners podcast, which I've mentioned before, and I know there's some Ghost Runners listeners on here. But on this Ghost Runners fantasy football team specifically, I don't know if I had mentioned before, but basically it started as an 18-team league, and every single week the worst overall team gets eliminated. Last year, I got eliminated in the third week, which is so disappointing, and I'm like, okay, if I get in this year, I just want to make it past at least a third week, hopefully make it a lot further, because I'm good at fantasy football. There's no way I don't do this. I'm not looking good this week. Currently, when you listen to this, I'll probably already know whether I'm eliminated or not. But right now, I am not doing super hot. One of my best wide receivers was not able to play today for the Miami Dolphins, because I'm recording this on Sunday, September 24th. And the Dolphins scored more points in a game than they ever have in their, I think, history as a team. But my wide receiver on the Dolphins did not play. And I'm like, why? I needed these points because in this league, we also have two quarterbacks. And one of my quarterbacks is Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. And he scored me a total of 10 points this week. He was projected to get me 44. So at this point in time, I'm in the running with like 3 other people to potentially be eliminated this week. I really hope that's not the case. But also, someone else who's in the running who's currently below me is Brad Ellis of Ellis Custom Creations, who is one of the Ghost Runners podcast hosts. So it would be kind of disappointing if one of the hosts got eliminated this early on. But also, I don't want to get eliminated either. So we'll see what happens. I'll give you an update next week on what actually happened and who maybe got eliminated. But yeah, it's not looking too good for me right now, but we'll see. We'll see. My other quarterback that still needs to go is Justin Fields of the Bears, and oh yeah, I'm probably out. The Bears are bad. So that's about it. Something else that happened recently, and this is going to probably take up a good portion of the podcast today, is that I think I've mentioned before, Dane's mentioned before, we're both like K-Life leaders here in Springfield, and a part of K-Life, we have like a K-Life leader retreat / training each year, and I just got back from that this morning, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown, kind of tell you some of the stuff that happened. There's a lot of different games and activities we did, and just like different trainings. So here is the K-Life leader retreat breakdown segment of the podcast. So part of this retreat, it was a 2-night stay in some really nice like resort-type houses near Branson, Missouri. It's kind of on the way to Kennecott Camps, which we've mentioned before, but we had like a girl's house and a guy's house, and then we usually would just hang out like in one of the houses and do like different games and activities and the trainings, but that's where we're situated. It was a really cool resort. They had like a pool there. They had pickleball courts, like a basketball court, etc. But yeah, we went there last like winter time to training as well. But this time, because it's September, it's kind of nice out, kind of hot, especially Missouri. Like we don't have fall weather yet, so it was very nice to hang out outside, and it wasn't snowing like it was last year. But the first night when I showed up, it was around like, I don't know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock or so. But then, like everybody was already playing pickleball, or like playing basketball or sand volleyball or something else along those lines. And typically, I would be all over like every single one of these games. But as I mentioned, have a bruised rib. I sound like a broken record right now, but I tried to shoot a basketball, and immediately I was like, nope, not doing this today. Not today, Satan, not today. So I avoided the basketball. The sand volleyball was an obvious no, but pickleball, it kind of worked. But I didn't play very well. I paired up with like a few different individuals here and there, playing some games. Every once in a while, would get a lead, but I think I lost every game I partook in. So I'm sorry to my partners out there that I couldn't have played a little bit better, but it's okay. It's okay. It was just the first night. I mean, I was kind of tired. there's no way I'll play this bad again. So that's we'll get back to that later. But after we finished playing pickleball and like all those different games outside, we met in, I think, the girls' house, and we kind of gave a rundown of what the week was going to look like. And then we played a classic game that I have played both like in college ministries and now in K-Life multiple times. And this game is called 99. Now, let me tell you what 99 is. Basically, there's like a few deck of cards like shuffled together, and then there are every single leader, basically, will send a circle, and each player will get 3 different cards. The goal of the game is to not be the person who puts the total of the cards over the value of 99, hence the name 99. There are different like wild cards in play, so the cards that aren't wild are just worth face value. So let's say like 3s are worth 3 points, kings are worth 10, jacks are worth 10, etc. But the cards that can do something a little different are 4s. They reverse the direction that everybody's playing, so that can come in handy. If you play a 9, it's just worth 0 points, so that's handy as well. If you have a joker, it takes it directly to 99, so that can make stuff a little crazy. And then if you have a 10, then it subtracts 10 from the total. So let's say I play a 3, that's worth 3 points. Someone plays a king, that makes it up to 13. I play a 10, that takes it down to back to 3 points, etc. And then once it gets to your turn, if you cannot play a card or a wild card that does not place it above 99, then you lose. And, for most games, okay, big whoop, you lose, you just move on. But no, in this game, 99, there's usually some kind of punishment that comes along with this game. And they're usually just they are just like fun kind of consequences that we get to make up ourselves. So some of these that have been in the past are like a mystery smoothie, which can get a little nasty, I guess. Or maybe there's something like wear only long sleeves in the heat. Maybe like jump in the lake, do 100 push-ups, etc. So nothing too crazy, but also something you don't really want to do. But also with this game, it's completely voluntary. You don't have to do if you don't want to. So everybody kind of knows what's at stake, which makes it more exciting. But when you lose, like in 99, like I said, you actually do not have to do a punishment immediately. You get a strike, and then once you hit 3 strikes, that's when you lose, and everybody go nuts, unless if you're the individual who loses and has to do the punishment. So there's always that factor in play, but overall, it's a classic game that we like to do on retreats or sometimes like just during other random meetings we have with one another. But yeah, it is a solid time. And like I said, we get to make up the punishments. And for myself, I usually don't put anything in, but it's like, hey, I got some good ones. One of them, I was just like, okay, you have to eat an entire banana. Not just the banana, but also the peel and the sticker. And I'm like, I think that's pretty good. I mean, something not too crazy, something someone could do and it's not too nasty. And then the other one was like, okay, this would be good. Because sometimes people in K-Life or just like other friends like to give me a little bit of a hard time with the podcast, but not always. For the most part, they are all like encouraging with it. But I was like, okay, here's what you got to do. Because again, I don't know everybody at this retreat. Some people I've like just met. And I was like, okay, you got to listen to the podcast. You got to subscribe. You got to leave 5 stars and leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. I'm like, okay, that's the punishment. I'm like, I know it's not anything too crazy, but I thought it would be kind of funny. So that's what I put in there. Someone drew that punishment like almost immediately. I was like, let's go. And then they said the punishment was weak. And I'm like, what? No, it kind of is weak, but it's not like super weak. I thought it would be a good punishment still. I mean, I didn't want to have someone like, okay, you have to listen to this podcast nonstop for 24 hours because I thought that would be kind of cruel and unusual punishment, even though this is a pretty solid podcast. But unfortunately, because it was considered a weak punishment, they made me draw instead. And I'm like, what in the world? Why? This is too much. But I did draw. Didn't want to, but I did. And then I drew a living room camping punishment. With this, again, it didn't sound too bad, so I wasn't like too disappointed. But basically, I had to sleep on the couch without a blanket or a pillow. And that's not too bad, but it's also this kind of annoying because I was going to sleep on a like king size bed. And it's like, no, you're going to sleep on the couch now. But I was able to kind of break the system. They said no pillow, no blanket. They said nothing about towels. So I got a towel as a blanket, got another towel as a pillow, and then I used the back cushions of the couch to kind of add some extra warmth. And it wasn't bad. I'm not gonna lie. I almost slept on the couch the next night as well, but there was a completely open bed, so I took that instead. But it wasn't that bad of a punishment. So that is, I guess, how the first night of 99 went. And overall, it was pretty good. Pretty good. So the next morning, we had some trainings for K-Life. As you know, believe it or not, we got to do something productive besides just having team building, which team building is productive, but we didn't just want to play 99 at all times. So after we had our trainings, we split up into 4 different teams, which was pretty awesome. That we kind of put names in a hat and they drew them. And my team, it was a star-studded cast. I mean, there's like no way we could lose the competitions that we were about to partake in, because my team was myself, Taylor, Josh, Kara, and friend of the podcast, Bella. So we had a stacked lineup from the beginning, and we were looking pretty good. So the first competition was pickleball, and you know how that went the first night. I lost every game. But you know, I didn't think it would happen again because it was sunny out. So we had an A team and a B team. I was feeling good. We started our game. It was me and Kara. We started off serving first. We didn't get the point, so it went to the other team. And then they scored 7 points in a row, and we only went to 7, and we lost 7-0. So sorry out there to my team. That was a disappointing performance on my part. But fortunately, our B team did make it to the semifinals, so we did get some points that way. But I was pretty disappointed in myself for my poor performance. So I hope when I'm healed up one of these days, we can do this again, and I'll see how I do that time around. So after we had pickleball, we did something similar to what we did last year on this training, and we did a photo scavenger hunt. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is a photo scavenger hunt? And I'm sure you got a pretty decent idea, but I have a prompt list that I can read through to you to kind of let you know what we had to find during our photo scavenger hunt in Branson. So, here's the list. First thing on the list, a selfie in Bass Pro Shop hats in front of the fish tank at Bass Pro. Another one is picture in front of the fountains at the Branson Landing. We got bonus points if there was fire in the background. Another one was picture in Krispy Kreme hats with donuts. Making a human pyramid in front of the giant Ferris wheel in Branson. Another one was posing like mannequins in a storefront, using our bodies to spell out K-Life. Having a picture in front of a flag, singing the national anthem, which is kind of weird because it says a picture in front of a flag singing the national anthem. It should have said a video because if you take a picture, it's just you can say whatever you want and be like, we were singing, but it wasn't very clear. Some other prompts we had were a picture in cowboy hats, eating a ice cream cone at Andy's in one bite, having a Jack and Rose pose in front of the Titanic Museum, so that was interesting. Go to a playground, fast food playground, and get bonus points if you go down the slide. You got to pretend to get eaten by a dinosaur, be fully dressed in a store outfit head to toe, jumping in the Lake Taneycomo in Branson, walking through the Starbucks drive-thru, making a Walmart paper towel fort, street performing and earning at least $1, trust falling into strangers, walking, quote-unquote, your dog down the landing, photo with Elvis, having floors lava in an arcade, nosing strangers, and then a fake proposal at the Branson Landing, which is just like the shopping area in Branson, Missouri. So those were all worth various points, and it was interesting to say the least. So one thing you need to know about me is I can get kind of cringy or nervous in these types of situations, especially ones involving other strangers. And this was specifically the street performing, trust falling into strangers, nosing strangers, which is basically just putting your nose on a stranger, and then for every consecutive person you get, and this was like a video, you get a bonus points. And then the other thing was like the fake proposals. And each one I'm like, I can't even be around my team doing this because I'm getting just, I don't feel right. I'm like, everybody's looking, or at least I think everybody's looking. And, it shouldn't really matter that much. But at the same time, it does. It matters. So I'm going to break down each of those just really quick for you. Trust falling into strangers. I was mainly just kind of like, okay, we shouldn't ask that group. We shouldn't ask that group. And then eventually we found a group, and then we fell, and it's like, okay, that wasn't too bad. Nosing strangers, That was a weird one because I didn't know if we would just start going up to people without saying anything to them and then putting our nose on them, or if we would ask, like, hey, is it okay if we put our nose on you? Eventually, we did find a group of like 6 like high school age guys, and they're like, yeah, sure, we don't care. So that was actually pretty easy also, not that big of a deal. Street performing, that one I started getting a little cringy. And I didn't even do the street performing. It was our guy Josh on our team. He just started breakdancing in the middle of the Branson Landing. I'm like, this is solid, but someone gave us $1. And then what was funny is this random little kid was like, hey, I'll pay you $5 if you spin on your head right now. And he's like, $5. It's concrete. I'll probably get a bald spot. I probably got to pass. But then the kid ended up paying him 56 more cents if he did the same move he did the first time around, which he did. And I was like, that was actually kind of fun. That was kind of funny. But the one that I think I got the most cringed out about was a fake proposal. And this was done with Bella, who was on our team. And it was kind of funny because she was meeting her now husband at the Branson Landing to go on a date. And he showed up and we're like, okay, you need to propose to Bella again. And we're like, just do it. And I'm like, again, it's not that weird because they are married, but at the same time, like, people are going to look. I feel like people are going to clap and cheer and everything else. So as soon as they started doing it, I'm like, I just had to walk away again. I'm like, why am I like this? Why am I like this? But they did it. I think a few people might have clapped. Nobody more than our guy Josh on our team. He started just going crazy. And I'm like, okay, you do that. You just get nice and loud. But I don't think anybody else really clapped because they didn't make like a big deal about the proposal, even though they're already married. But we got it done. So we had lots of other just random competitions, or I guess pictures that we did during this photo scavenger hunt. The only ones we did not do, they had us jump in the really cold lake. We didn't do that, and that was partially on my part because, again, I think there was only going to be one of us who was going to do it, which was Josh, but then it got to the point where we're running out of time, so we didn't do it. We didn't walk through a Starbucks drive-thru, make a Walmart paper towel fort, etc., because our team specifically did not have as much time as the other teams, and that's because 2 of our team members, who I'm not going to name names, but it was Bella and Kara, they had to leave a little early from our competition, and that's because Kara, I think, had to go back to Springfield, and then Bella had to go on her date with her husband. But because of this, we had to kind of wait around at the landing to start before we could drive back to Branson and get pictures at some of these other locations, and it just wasn't the most efficient way to use our time or effective way, but it was okay. It's just a game. It's no big deal, but we might have won otherwise. But the other teams probably just went straight to their locations and had more time to get everything done. But it ended up working okay. We got most of the pictures finished. But one thing that we still had to do in the time limit, because we only had until like 6 o'clock to meet back at like the Branson Landing fountains. And we had like 5 minutes left, and we had not filmed a funny video. And this is a big part, I think, of the score. And we were getting a little worried, so we started just kind of walking in stores. Like, okay, which store might have something funny we could use? And again, it was like 5 minutes left. We walked into this candy store, started looking around. I'm like, okay, hey, they're like, Samuel, you have a podcast. You should be funny. You should know this. I'm like, it's not exactly the same thing. We're not doing video yet. It's just audio podcast. But I'll think if I can think of anything punny. And I did. I thought of something punny, and that was they had like a Swedish fish, like stuffed animal. And I'm like, okay, Josh, get on the ground. And I started flopping the fish, and we're just kind of taping me flopping this like stuffed animal fish on the ground. And then we zoom over, or swoop the camera, I guess, over to Josh, and he's just like spazzing out, acting like a fish out of water. And then they went back to my fish, and that was it. It was like a 6-second video, basically what Vine was back in the day. And I'm like, okay, this is short, straight to the point. It's pretty funny. We started laughing. We got the whole thing done in about 2 minutes, and we were good to go. And we found out later, like, there were some videos by other teams that they spent like over an hour on, and I'm like, that is crazy. But they had more time to work with. We didn't have as much time, but we worked well under pressure. We got the video. I might post it later on. We'll see. But it was pretty good, pretty funny. So it reached 6 o'clock. All the teams met back at the fountains, and then we went to dinner together, which was pretty solid. And then we went back to the houses to go over our final point totals for these competitions. And it was honestly a pretty funny time because we got to look through each and every person's like photos that they took, and some of them they're they were pretty funny, pretty solid. And a lot of people actually took videos for some of these pictures, which was technically not the prompt, but it did make some things a little funnier. And there was, I just started laughing so hard during some of these photos and pictures and videos. And I said photos and pictures, that's the same thing. But again, I've mentioned, I'm beating a dead horse here. Like, I got a bruised rib, and it hurts especially bad when I start coughing. And I was laughing so hard, it made me cough, and then I was coughing, and I was like, I'm in so much pain, but this is also so funny. I don't really know what to do, but it was, I guess, still worth it, but it was painful. I think, honestly, our photos that we had for our team were some of the funniest just based on, like, expressions and everything else, because we had one where, like, the one where, like, Jack and Rose in front of the Titanic, it had two of our partners were just, like, taking a selfie of me and Josh, who were in the background, just having the most awkward Jack and Rose pose, like, ever. And we just we started zooming on different people, and we were dying. Like, it was hilarious. We also were laughing quite a bit when I was trying to eat an entire Andy's small ice cream cone in one bite, because I was, like, looking up at the camera barely, and then I had, like, the entire ice cream in my mouth. And the other teams, they just had, like, a puppy cone that they put in their mouth, and I legit went the full small ice cream cone from Andy's. I think Joe Hendricks, who was, like, the main leader, he also did that. But I'm like, what are you guys doing? You gotta put a little more effort into this to get the full points. But it's okay. But we just had hilarious expressions there as well. And then we went to watch the funny videos for everybody. And for each team, one team, it was Joe Hendricks, who I mentioned, and then his now fiancee, Julie. They did a fake proposal video. And I just said they are engaged, so they've done the real proposal as well. But their video was right in front of Paula Deen's restaurant in Branson, Missouri. And they did, like, a whole, like, a whole proposal thing, and they made sure other people could see it. And then whoever was running the camera, they zoomed in right as he was proposing, and you could see the people inside the Paula Deen restaurant. This girl, her mouth just dropped, and I was like, what in the world? And then her sister put her hand on her face and turned her where she wasn't looking anymore, and she was just like, oh my word, this is nuts. But it was, the expressions by the people in the background were hilarious. Like, we were dying laughing. It was great. One of the other videos we had was, like, another fake proposal video, and this one, it was two of the team members on a separate team, and they asked, like, two other random dudes to be in the video, and this kind of showed their expressions, and it was pretty funny as well. Another one was, like I mentioned earlier, you had to nose people, like, stick your nose on different individuals. And while my team, we asked the people ahead of time, like, hey, can we put our nose on you? This video was Mitch, one of the other K-Life leaders. He was walking around pretty quickly in the Bass Pro Shops, just, like, saying, like, excuse me, and then he would, like, put his nose on the back of people, and they, I guess, probably just thought he was, like, bumping into them. But it was, it was like, what? It's like, what in the world are you doing? I think some people definitely saw it and caught on. It's like, what? Whoa, this is cringy to watch. But he got quite a few people that way, so he got a lot of points, but that was funny. And then we had our flopping fish video. And, like, all these other videos are at least, like, a minute long. And then ours is 6 seconds. And we watched it the first time, and nobody laughed. And I think everybody's like, what just happened? But then we watched it again and watched it again and watched it again. I think each time we're like, okay, this is pretty funny. And we started laughing quite a bit. But it was a solid video, all things considered. Because, again, some of these other videos are pretty highly produced. But ours, we kept it simple. We kept it, like, in the Vine days. And that's how videos are meant to be for our short attention spans, as you already know. But yeah, we did that. We ended up voting on each of the videos, and we didn't really know exactly how to do this. So they're like, okay, whatever video is your favorite that wasn't yours, raise your hand. And the most hands went up on, drumroll please, it wasn't ours. It was Joe and Julie's fake proposal video, which I voted for that one. It was hilarious. But it was kind of funny because we didn't necessarily get a lot of laughs the first time around when we watched our video, but we got more votes than the other two videos. So we ended up getting second place for our video that we came up with in about 3 minutes and filmed. Like, we came up with the idea and filmed it all in about a 3-minute time period, and we got second overall in the funny video category. So I'm like, okay, well done, team. Well done, team. Like, that was the most efficient way we could use our time in that situation. But then, again, I mentioned like each picture for the photo scavenger hunt was worth different point totals. Also, whoever won the pickleball tournament also received a certain amount of points, and they went through, and our team got fourth place out of 4. So a little disappointing there, but pretty understandable to say that none of us jumped in the lake. We weren't able to get through all the prompts, and then we also had some delays early on with team members having to leave at certain times, which, hey, it's understandable. I understand, but we probably could have scored more if we had more time. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was solid overall. We laughed a ton, and the winners, they I think got some Chick-fil-A gift cards. So rip, didn't get those, but it was still worth it. Still a very good competition. So from there, we decided to end the night with some high stakes 99. This isn't your normal 99. We didn't play with just 3 strikes. If you lose, you get a punishment, and that made for some interesting gameplay. Also, we had like half the amount of leaders there at night because several people had to leave early, so there was a much better chance you were going to lose in a group of, let's say, 10 people compared to 20. But we still played several times. We started going around. I don't think I lost the first round. We kind of went through it. It was all good. And then we went through again, and something that's interesting with this game, I didn't mention this rule before. If you have 3 of the same cards, so like 3 4s, 3 kings, 3 jokers, etc., and you play them down during your turn, if you stand up, put little finger guns at your side and say pew, 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 everybody loses and gets a strike. But in high stakes, that means every single person would have to draw a punishment. I got to my turn, and I had 2 of the same card, and then a wild card, which was a 10, which would take the score down 10. So if it came to me and it was at 99 already, no, I wouldn't lose. I could just play the 10 and be good. But I was playing a little risky, and I'm like, I want to get every single person out here. So I played my 10 on my one turn. It went back around again, and I could not play anything, and I got another punishment. So it was pretty disappointing on my end. And this time around for my punishment, one of the videos that one of the teams made was of walking their dog down the Branson Landing, which is a shopping area I mentioned earlier. But they did a full minute video that was edited, and they put a string around one of the other leaders' toes and acted like it was their dog. And they were chasing it around. They were playing Who Let the Dogs Out. It was a crazy video. And I'm like, I don't want to post this on my social media. And my original plan was, okay, I'll just throw it on the podcast, Instagram, and be good. But I've not done that yet because I have not got a quality video sent to me, because Joe Hendricks, who had the video, sent it to me via text, and he has an iPhone and I have Android, so it didn't really cooperate, and it sent poorly, so poorly. So at some point, I hope he sends me the full HD video, and then I might throw it on one of my social medias, probably the Instagram one for Until Next Week podcast, and then I might share it to my story on there, and then share that story on my normal Instagram. So I have a method for this madness, but I just need the full video. So if someone gives me the video and it's full HD glory, then I will post it. But until then, we'll just have to wait until next week and see what happens. Pun intended. Please, I hope you're still listening to this podcast. So I'm sorry for that joke. But it was pretty fun. We played a few more times after that, and several different people lost, had different random punishments, and then it got down to the last round. And it was going around. I'm like, okay, I think I might be good. I have a 4, which reverses in case someone gets to 99. But then I saw Joe Hendricks, who was sitting next to me. He also had a 4. And I'm like, oh no, if I reverse to him, he'll reverse to me and I'll lose. So I was getting very nervous because I didn't want to draw again. But then one of the other K-Life leaders, I think it was Maddie, she was like, hey, take my hand. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. And I took one of her cards, and I picked up a 4. I'm like, yes. So it got back to me, and then I played a 4 again, so reversed back to Joe, and then he was able to make it to the next person. And then I think it was Ashley was the one who then had to take the punishment, and she lost. And, I kind of felt bad at first. And if she would have got a punishment that was legitimate, that was okay, that's pretty bad, then I would have spoken up probably in that scenario. But her punishment was only hold hands with one of the other leaders, and it was late at night, so I think she only had to do it for a little bit in the first place. So I'm sorry, Ashley, if you're listening. I didn't cheat, but I didn't. Yeah, I cheated. But it was with Maddie's help, so there is that. I found out afterwards, though, that Maddie had 3 of the same card. She had 3 4s. She was trying to give me all of her cards, which would have hurt her because then I could have done that laser beam I mentioned and gave everybody a punishment. And she was willing to take that risk. She was like, I think she was like, I don't care. It would have been worth it. And I'm like, I wish I would have seen that because that would have been hilarious. Everybody doing a punishment that ultimately they didn't technically deserve because we were changing cards. But I think changing of cards, I think, happens more than we like to say, but it does make for an interesting version of this game. So yeah, that was kind of how the leader weekend ended. I think later that night, some of the guys, they had like a hot tub in the back of one of the houses, and we hung out there and kind of had some good conversations. And then I went to sleep, woke up early the next morning, went to church, and that's today. So there we go. We are all caught up in time, and that is how the leader weekend went. It was a great time. Met several new people, got to build some stronger relationships with other people, and the most important thing is I got to talk about the podcast more, or it was learning more about Jesus and kind of building like leadership skills and everything else. But one or the other, I was able to do both. So ultimately, it was a pretty good weekend, just to say the least. But yeah, kind of going from there, it's a great transition to our sponsors of the week. And yes, our number one sponsor is Jesus. Don't need to mess around. Like, you know who it is. It's going to be the same person every single week. But Jesus is our number one sponsor of the week. And something about our K-Life Leader Retreat is we were trying to learn different skills on like maybe how to share like the gospel of Jesus with like other people. And one of those ways is going through the Romans Road, which is like 5 different verses throughout Romans that kind of show like, okay, you're a sinner, like you need a savior, etc. And it's an easy way to walk somebody through the gospel. But one of the verses that is good to start with before those is John 3:16. And I think this is arguably one of the most popular verses or well-known verses of all time, but it's because it's just so much truth is packed into this verse. And it is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. It's the most simple way to show like what the gospel is. Like, God loved us. He sent his Son to die for us. His Son rose again. And if we believe all that and follow him, we can have eternal life with Christ, which is awesome. It's like so awesome. So yes, Jesus, number one sponsor of the week. Number 2, Jake, Trust, and Art. I mean, you can't have one without the other. You can't have Jesus without Jake, Trust, and Art. That, I don't know how that sounded. But yes, Jake, Trust, and Art is our number 2 sponsor of the week. He's a stud. Number 3 sponsor of the week is actually, I'm kind of putting 2 people here, Jackson and Brock Frazier. Yes, they are brothers. I don't know if I've mentioned them on the pod before, but I've been very close friends with Jackson since college, and then Brock's also a stud. I've hung out with him quite a few times. But randomly, like this past week, they just started listening to lots of the Until Next Week podcast episodes together because they're both sending me like text messages like, hey, this is good. Like, this is funny. Like, we're laughing like quite a bit. And they were like sending me this different messages. I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. Like, I really appreciate your feedback. Like, whenever someone sends me like different messages along those lines or like updates that they're listening to the podcast or it's making them smile or they're laughing or whatever else, I'm like, that's cool. Like, I really appreciate that feedback because sometimes I'm like, I don't know how this is going. I don't know if you're just being nice to me randomly when you see me in person or if you actually do enjoy this. But I keep on hearing more and more continual feedback that, hey, this is pretty good. Like, this is a solid podcast. But one thing that I do want to mention is during the K-Life Leader Retreat, there was different leaders who do listen to the podcast, and some said it is like a solid podcast and they enjoy it. But one thing is like, hey, maybe just like feedback wise, like maybe you should just like maybe pick more of a specific topic some days. That might be able to help you grow your audience. But I'm like, I kind of like the randomness. That's most of the podcasts I listen to anyway. It's just kind of randomness. I think we're getting better at having like some sort of structure or segment, so I don't think it's as random as it once was. But yeah, it's you. If you're listening, you know it can be a little bit all over the place. So if you think maybe we can improve in any certain areas, just make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and leave us a written comment on maybe what we can do. Or you can click our links, I think, in the episode itself to leave us a voice memo, and you can share your thoughts that way. We can throw it on the podcast and go from there. I know if you leave any voice memos, that could be pretty helpful for us to use in the future, especially with Deen being out for a while. It could give us more ideas. I know there's at least one voice memo in the hopper that I'm going to wait until Deen is back on the podcast to discuss. But yeah, it's just some random thoughts. So just leave us 5 stars. Like, on Spotify. Also subscribe to our channel, Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, subscribe, leave us a written review, etc., etc., etc. Like follow us on Instagram and Twitter, like etc. Like you just follow all the things. That'd be cool. But yeah, if you could just keep telling your friends if you enjoy this podcast. That's one of the coolest ways to, I guess, kind of grow this community. If you tell people that you like it, maybe they'll like it as well and can grow that way. Yeah, and I'd appreciate that. Also, yeah, like I mentioned, leave us voice memos. We have the link in the episode descriptions. If you go to our Instagram, there's like a link tree. If you click on that, it has like links to like our Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitter, where you can leave voice memos and just like other like pretty helpful links. And then honestly, most importantly, like I know a lot of times we're joking around, or I guess I'm joking around in these episodes, but if you could please just keep Deen in your prayers, we'll all be excited to hear from him again soon. But prayers in the meantime would be much appreciated. I know he really appreciates it. I appreciate it. And yeah, I just can't wait for him to be back on this podcast. So I think that's it. So thank you for listening. And this has been episode 39 of the Until Next Week podcast.